The rain drizzled steadily as Amanda stared out of the small window of her modest apartment, her heart weighed down by despair. It had been 2 years since Carlos, her husband, had disappeared, leaving her alone with their twin daughters, Eva and Emily. They were only 4 years old when he walked out, taking with him all their savings and vanishing without a trace. Amanda had been caught off guard, blindsided by the man she thought would stand by her side for life. Now, she found herself navigating a world that felt increasingly harsh and uncaring. The bills had piled up, and though Amanda worked 2 jobs, it never seemed to be enough. She worked as a cashier at a local grocery store during the day and cleaned offices late into the night. Most nights, she barely got 3 or 4 hours of sleep. Her body was exhausted, but her spirit refused to give up. Her daughters were her world, and she would do anything to provide for them. But today, something felt different. She had been running on empty for too long, and the weight of it all pressed down on her in a way that made her feel as though she were suffocating. Eva and Emily, now 6 years old, were playing in the corner of the room with the few toys they had. Despite everything, they were happy children, full of life and laughter. They had no idea how much their mother struggled. Amanda made sure of that. But even their laughter, usually a source of comfort, couldn't lift the heaviness in her heart today. Amanda knew she was at her breaking point. Just as the tears began to well up in her eyes, there was a knock at the door. Startled, she quickly wiped her eyes and went to open it. Standing there was an older woman with kind eyes and a gentle smile. Amanda had seen her in the neighborhood before, but didn't know much about her. The woman introduced herself as Mrs. Thompson, a retired teacher who lived in the apartment 2 floors down. "I don't mean to intrude, dear," Mrs. Thompson began, her voice warm and soothing, "but I couldn't help but notice how hard you've been working lately, and it reminded me of someone I used to know. Is everything all right?" Amanda hesitated. She was not the type to share her problems with strangers, but something about Mrs. Thompson made her feel at ease. She invited the older woman in and told her everything, about Carlos, the twins, the long hours, and the crushing exhaustion. Mrs. Thompson listened patiently, nodding occasionally and offering a kind word. When Amanda finished, she looked at her with compassion in her eyes. "My dear, I've been through something similar. My husband passed away when my children were young, and I had to raise them on my own. It wasn't easy, but with faith and a little help from others, I made it through, and so will you." Amanda felt a strange sense of relief wash over her. It had been so long since someone had offered her comfort and understanding. Mrs. Thompson went on to share stories from her own life, about the struggles she had faced and how she had come to learn that there was always hope, even in the darkest of times. Then Mrs. Thompson said something that surprised Amanda. "I've been helping out at a local church nearby, and they have a program that assists single mothers and families in need. They provide food, clothing, and even some financial support to help get people back on their feet. I think they could help you, Amanda." At first, Amanda felt hesitant. She had always been fiercely independent and didn't like the idea of accepting charity. But as Mrs. Thompson spoke, she realized that accepting help wasn't a sign of weakness. It was a step toward rebuilding her life, a way to give her daughters a better future. With Mrs. Thompson's encouragement, Amanda reached out to the church. The program was run by a kind-hearted pastor and his wife, who welcomed Amanda and her daughters with open arms. They provided them with food, clothes, and even found ways to help Amanda reduce her bills. The community at the church embraced them, offering friendship and support in ways Amanda hadn't expected. For the first time in years, Amanda began to feel hope returning to her heart. She continued to work, but now she had a safety net, a group of people who cared about her and her daughters. The burden of survival no longer felt like it was hers to carry alone. As time passed, Amanda began to volunteer at the church, helping other families who were struggling just as she once had. She became a beacon of hope for others, her story serving as a testament to resilience, compassion, and the power of community. Eva and Emily grew up surrounded by love and support, and Amanda, though she had lost much, gained something far greater, a sense of belonging and purpose. One day, as she sat in the church, watching her daughters play with other children, she looked back on the painful journey she had endured. She realized that though Carlos had taken their savings, he hadn't taken her spirit. She had survived because God had sent people her way when she needed them most, from Mrs. Thompson to the pastor and his wife. Each person had been a bridge of compassion, helping her cross the turbulent waters of her life. The lesson Amanda learned and carried with her was clear. No matter how hard life may get, no one has to walk through it alone. Help is always there if you're willing to accept it. And in the end, compassion is what binds us all together. With faith, kindness, and the support of others, even the heaviest burdens can be lightened. Amanda never saw Carlos again, but she no longer cared. Her heart was full. Her life was rich with love, and her daughters were growing up in a home filled with joy and hope. And for that, she was eternally grateful.